We do have history going on outside of MLS, though. So I want to bring in John McKenzie now, who's the head of analytics FC and a native in Leeds over in England, to talk a little bit about Jesse Marsch and what he's stepping into at Leeds United. As I mentioned off the top of the show, Jesse Marsch, the third American to be put in charge of an EPL side after Bob Bradley and David Wagner over the last few years. And I think for everyone involved, hopeful that he will be the most successful USMN or American to ever be put in charge of a Premier League side. John, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Amazing. The beauty of technology, going transcontinental for the first time in our show's history. John, I think to start with, for everyone who maybe doesn't know, isn't experts on what's going on, set the stage a little bit for where Leeds stands as a club, the atmosphere around them, the atmosphere around the fans.
Yeah, it's a really interesting situation for Leeds United at the moment. We have, for the last 4 seasons, had Marcelo Bielsa as our manager at the helm. He's been become a legend at the club, as he has done at so many other clubs that he's been at. And things have gone very rapidly wrong for him. So the context within which Jesse Marsch is arriving at Leeds is stepping into the shoes of someone for whom a lot of us weren't ready to see the back of him. So very tough context for him to come in. But I do think there are mitigating factors that will maybe make the transfer a little bit easier. Obviously, Marcelo Bielsa is a high-intensity pressing coach, so we're expecting to see more of the same from Jesse Marsch. And also very transitional coach as well. So those two things will work in his favour.
What has been the reaction from fans in general around the news that, not just that he's an American, but he was let go from Leipzig after only a couple months. And as you said, Bielsa, such a club legend and just a character around the world that people connect with and feel so emotionally strongly about.
Yeah, it's a really tricky one to negotiate, because I think so many fans were so surprised at the speed with which Bielsa was let go, and none of us expected him to be not managing the team this weekend. So I think it's hard to judge what the fan base is thinking, because I think they're still within the stages of grief that you obviously go through in these sorts of situations. But I think that from what I've seen in terms of the approach to Marsch, he's made very good impressions in terms of his public appearances so far. And I think that has set him in good stead with the fan base. And I think that, obviously the end of Bielsa's reign obviously wasn't fun for fans as well, regardless of how they feel about Marcelo Bielsa. So I think there's just a general feeling amongst the fan base now that they want to see things turn around quickly, stay in the Premier League, and then kick on from there. So I think that we're sort of moving towards the hopeful side of things. And I think that any manager who comes in who I guess has the sort of background that Jesse Marsch does is going to be interesting for a fan base anyway, because it's not just your average sort of hire that you might have seen at Leeds United in the last few decades, especially because we were dropped down into the lower leagues for a long proportion of those 2 decades. So I think there is definitely an upward trajectory in the fan base. There's definitely a lot of positivity there, and it will. I guess the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So we'll see how it turns out at the weekend.
And you mentioned drop down. That is the danger. That's what precipitated the move for Bielsa. Is currently sitting 2 points above the relegation zone. The 2 teams behind them, I think it's Everton and Crystal Palace, both have 2 games in hand as well. So a dangerous moment right now for Leeds, and the last stretch has been, let's say, interesting, entertaining from a goals point of view, and as a neutral, I would assume not so much as a Leeds United fan. So what is it that Jesse Marsch can do? What is it that maybe seems simple, or the first few moves going forward for him to start to right the ship?
Yeah, so I would say that in terms of like the squad that he has at his disposal, there's the positivities that Leeds United have a net spend of well over 150 million in the last 2 seasons they've been in the Premier League. So on paper, he has a decent squad on hand for himself. The issue is that squad has been built to suit Marcelo Bielsa, who is a manager who likes to have wide build-up, yes, we've talked about the transition. Yes, we've talked about the high pressing, but this squad is very much not built for the sort of direct central play that you will see from Jesse Marsch's football team. So that's a big question. But I suppose the negativity amongst the fan base around Bielsa's tactics has been largely directed to the man marking system that he has, which makes him pretty unique in the world of football. And I think that the belief is amongst the fan base that moving to a more zonal system, despite the fact that it is a quite intense, heavy pressing system, will just afford Leeds a little bit more solidity at the back, and will prevent teams just sort of walking through them as they have been doing in the particularly the last couple of months. But to be fair, throughout Bielsa's time. So I think that's the sort of state of affairs. In terms of the attacking side of things, I suppose that Bielsa does have fairly structured possessional play, although this season has really not been particularly great on that respect either. So the big question that I think a lot of us have is whether or not this sort of more rough and ready approach that Jesse Marsch seems to have in terms of forward, having high volumes of attacks and trying to destabilize the opposition and exploit space in between them when they are in disarray. I guess a lot of us are wondering whether or not that will be enough for the issues at the other end of the pitch to be sorted out as well.
It's an interesting moment for Jesse Marsch because his last job he took over for Nagelsmann at RB Leipzig, and Nagelsmann had turned them into a more possession team, and Jesse Marsch was trying to up the tempo, up the intensity, bring back the press. Now it feels like he has to scale it back a little from what Bielsa has done, and Bielsa's obviously on an end of a scale in the world that no one else sits on. So it's a really interesting proposition for what could happen and how this could set out. Now, try and look forward, unfortunately for me, a little bit. And let's say that this team isn't able to fight their way out. They do get relegated. Is that going to be it for Jesse Marsch, or is this signing made with an idea that he can build this club long term?
That's an interesting question. He's obviously been given a 3.5-year deal, so the assumption is that he is going to be around for a while. What caveats he has in terms of going down, I absolutely don't know. What I do know is that his assistant manager is a coach who is from the UK, and he's only on a 6-month contract. So make of that what you will.
Interesting.
In terms of whether or not Jesse Marsch would be happy to stick around, I don't know. If Leeds went down, I think it would be interesting if he did, because I think that the general idea around Leeds United at the moment, from what we're seeing, is that there is going to be this increased stakeholding from the 49ers, and that there is going to be a sort of approach to the club that is maybe categorized by joined up thinking. So if he did stick around, it would suggest that the Leeds are going to go further down this sort of route that they've already gone down with this play style, and maybe bringing in some players from the US to suit Jesse Marsch's style as well. And I'm all for that. It would be great to expand the fan base over to the US as well. We've already picked up a lot of fans, I think, because of Marcelo Bielsa. So it'd be nice to see that sort of trajectory continued. But yeah, it will be fascinating to see what will happen. Part of me doesn't want to see that happen, obviously, as a Leeds United fan. But I think the big thing for us now is just staying up in the next 12 games and making sure we avoid that eventuality altogether.
So a huge moment for Jesse Marsch. John McKenzie coming in from Leeds. Let me ask you one last question to be very pointed towards the American fan base and who's listening to this show. Brendan Aaronson, we heard those rumors over the course of January. What happened that the move didn't come about? And do you expect maybe that with Jesse Marsch in tow now in this summer, that's one of those moves that could go through?
Yeah, the rumours are that is a move that absolutely will go through if we're still in the Premier League, which makes sense. And obviously, the very fact that Brendan Aaronson is being linked so strongly with Leeds, I think, indicates that the club are wanting to move into a certain direction, and there no doubt will be a lot of other players from MLS that we will be linked with. And again, it would be good to see that sort of link made. But with Brendan Aaronson in particular, I've watched a lot of him. He's an exciting player, and obviously the sort of player that we would need to be bringing in, given that, as I've said, our squad is maybe built a little bit more for wide play rather than central play, and we know that Brendan Aaronson is a player who has played through the middle. He's played as the point in the 4-2 diamond that Salzburg are playing at the moment. He can also play in wide areas, as we've seen for the US men's national team, and I think he could also play as one of those wider forwards as well in the 4-2-2-2, which is obviously the Red Bull prototype. So yeah, I expect that will go through if we are still in the Premier League as of next season.